Most video games have a highly coveted weapon that destroys anything in its path. Doom's BFG can turn a room full of demons into goo with a single blast. James Bond's golden gun will kill anyone with one shot. But there's another kind of weapon that often stands out in video games, and that's the cute one. These weapons aren't just put in as a joke though. They're deliberately adorable so the enemy will let their guard down, allowing the weapon to rip them to shreds. I'm Jess from WhatCulture, and here are 10 cute video game weapons that destroyed you. Number 10. A LEPREKAUN, Mortal Kombat 11. Mortal Kombat 11 introduced a new feature called consumables. By activating these artifacts before a match, your player can call upon all sorts of offensive and defensive accessories. Most of these items are exactly what you'd expect. When your opponent is causing you trouble, you can shoot a barrage of shurikens, a tarkatan blade, or a bloodied sai. But if you want the luck of the Irish on your side, you can use a bloody clover to summon the LEPREKAUN. With the press of a button, this jolly fairy folk will stroll by or glide on a rainbow cloud, singing a jovial Gaelic tune. If the LEPREKAUN touches the opposing combatant, the Celtic fairy unleashes a hoard of coins or drops a pot of gold on them, blasting them into the air. Not only does this cause devastating damage, it gives the player a chance to perform a free hit. Watching your opponent's face the first time you summon the LEPREKAUN is priceless, since they have no idea what's in store for them when they come into contact with the Irish chap. Number 9. Patricia the Seal, HYRULE Warriors Age of Calamity. In HYRULE Warriors Age of Calamity, you must play as multiple heroes from the Legend of Zelda franchise in order to destroy Ganon's forces. Each playable character wields a specific type of weapon. Link slices at his foes with swords, Mipha cuts through bokoblins with a spear, Revali strikes from afar with his bow. Now, some of the heroes use more unconventional weaponry. Maz, for example, pounds his enemies with bangles, and Hetsu fights with maracas. But the weirdest and cutest weapon belongs to the Gerudo chief, Makila Riju. Being a leader, Riju has access to an endless supply of swords, daggers, and spears. Nevertheless, she charges into battle armed with a sand seal called Patricia. Because of the bow in her hair and the way she pants like a dog, you just want to stroke the fuzzy munchkin. But Patricia isn't a mere pet. Since she's wrapped with a harness around Riju's arms, the Gerudo chief can swing her tusked friend around like a cannon or a catapult, killing enemies in an instant. Not only does Patricia's blubbery body protect her from harm, it allows her to crush anything she lands on. Number 8. LOUIE, Bomberman series. In the Bomberman series, our titular hero uses explosives to blast through labyrinth-like levels. In his adventures, Bomberman can pick up power-ups that give the player abilities like enhanced speed, a remote detonator, or extra bombs. But one of the best power-ups has to be the LOUIEs. After hopping onto one of these space kangaroos, they'll help our hero any way they can. Even though these hopping critters look harmless, they're anything but. Depending on which LOUIE you use, he or she can kick bombs into enemies, jump over blocks, or punch foes into submission. The Magaroo LOUIE may be the cutest, for example, he's got a top hat for crying out loud, but he's also the most lethal. While riding this fluffy marsupial, he can line up 8 bombs in an instant, giving enemies little time to escape the blast. Because there's a LOUIE hidden in almost every level in multiplayer, it's fun, but terrifying, for you and your friends to scour the room relentlessly, knowing that the first person to find them will have a major advantage over their opponents. Number 7. Mr. Saturn, Smash Bros. Mr. Saturn is actually, we're not entirely sure. In the game he's debuted in, Earthbound, it's never explained what the heck this thing actually is. But if you ask anyone who's played the Smash Bros. Series, they'll tell you exactly what he is. A bloody nuisance. At first glance, Mr. Saturn looks like the most innocuous projectile, but when you throw him at your opponent, he still seems harmless since it has almost no effect when one comes into contact with the minuscule alien. But in the hands of an experienced player, Mr. Saturn is one of the best weapons in the franchise. If you hit an enemy with this guy normally, they'll sustain little damage. If you hurl the little extraterrestrial at your rival while they have their shield up, their armor will shatter. If this impact doesn't kill the player, they'll be stunned, allowing anyone nearby to wail on them with their most powerful smash attack. Novices may see Mr. Saturn as a pointless item, but anyone experienced with the game knows it's foolish to underestimate his power. Number 6. Starman, Mario Kart. The first devastating weapon that most gamers experienced was Starman from the Super Mario series. This dancing, beady-eyed star looks cute, but anyone who's played a Mario game, meaning everyone in the whole world pretty much, knows how unstoppable this power-up is. Not only will this collectible allow the player to survive any basic attack, they'll be able to annihilate almost any enemy with a mere touch. Even though it's fun to use Starman to charge into Goombas and Koopa Troopas, it's more enjoyable when you activate the power-up in the Mario Kart series. Using this item to crash into your friends when you're seconds away from the finish line has to be one of the most satisfying moments in all of gaming. Of course, it's also one of the most annoying if you happen to be on the receiving end. Even though Starman has played a role in Super Smash Bros., Mario Golf, and many other games centered around the Italian plumber, you only truly comprehend how destructive this item is in the Mario Kart series. Number 5. CLUCKSHOT, Gears of War 3. For some reason, the Gears of War franchise has a lot of Easter eggs involving chickens. In the third entry in the series, you can perform a series of specific tasks to battle a fire-breathing rooster made of gold. But the most famous secret in Gears of War 3 is the hen blasting gun, the CLUCKSHOT. Even though this weapon can only be acquired on the insane difficulty, obtaining it is totally worth it. It may look like the boomshot launcher, but this bad boy blasts chickens instead of bombs. Then again, this gun doesn't just fire ordinary chickens. I mean, they wouldn't be particularly effective against giant aliens, would they? Instead, the feathery friends that the CLUCKSHOT blasts are filled with explosives, rendering your target to a bloody paste on impact. Even though the CLUCKSHOT was a joke weapon, it became such a staple to the Gears of War series that it appeared in 2 follow-ups. If you ever fantasized about blowing up your foes with a combustible cockerel, and let's be honest, who hasn't, the CLUCKSHOT is the weapon for you. Number 4. The PEGASUS, Dead Rising 2. When Dead Rising 2 hit shelves all the way back in 2010, the zombie action adventure received critical acclaim and sold millions. But after only a year, the studio released an updated version called Dead Rising 2 Off the Record. Although this incarnation had a number of additions, there was one that stood out above the rest. You can fight zombies with a riding stick Pegasus combined with a firework. By jamming the horse's head into a horde of the undead, you can watch them blast into the air like it's the 4th of July. It was obvious this was what was missing from the original DR2. Because of the series' meta humor, crazy characters, and ridiculous weapons, it's always been clear Dead Rising was not afraid to take the piss out of itself, and nothing emphasizes this fact more than the ability to kill a swarm of rotting zombies with a tool that looks like it came out of My Little Pony. The absurdity of the Pegasus riding stick was such a selling point for Dead Rising 2 Off the Record, it even received its own trailer. Number 3. The Mighty JINJONATOR, BANJO-KAZOOIE. In BANJO-KAZOOIE, the titular bear and bird need to collect 5 Jinjos per level to obtain a Jiggy, which helps the pair advance to new levels. Considering the Jinjos look like a cross between a teddy bear and a dinosaur, you wouldn't think they'd be adorable. However, the Jinjos are the cutest guys in the game, which is a major achievement since BANJO-KAZOOIE is filled with all sorts of adorable creatures. Because they look and sound innocent, you'd never believe these fuzzy critters could hurt or fly, but nothing could be further from the truth. Not only are Jinjos tremendously powerful, they're crucial in defeating the final boss. As a thank you for saving them, the Jinjos will appear in your final confrontation with Gruntilda and launch themselves at the evil witch. In the closing phase of the battle, Banjo and Kazooie must awaken the Jinjo's leader, the mighty JINJONATOR. He might look like a giant plushie, but the JINJONATOR is the only one who can vanquish Gruntilda, making him the most powerful weapon in the game. Number 2. Mr. TOOTS, Red Faction Armageddon. No cute video game weapons list is complete without mentioning Mr. TOOTS from Red Faction Armageddon. Despite the fact this third-person shooter boasts dozens of weapons, such as grenade launchers, magnet guns, plasma cannons, there's no weapon more legendary than this little horsey. Simply put, Mr. TOOTS is a mini unicorn that shoots rainbow lasers from its butt. If caught in the blast, the enemy will implode into a bunch of butterflies and rainbows. Even though you can only use this powerhouse pony after completing the main storyline, it's an absolute must to try out. Even if it wasn't super cute and utterly ridiculous, Mr. TOOTS is so accurate and destructive, using him as your primary weapon makes the game a breeze. Based on the little chap's facial expression, Mr. TOOTS is clearly not a fan of being used as a weapon, although it is his own fault for making his butt lasers so devastating. After using the little unicorn for a while, you'd assume the novelty of it would wear off, but no! Even after eliminating 1,000 enemies with Mr. TOOTS, it's still hilarious watching a miniature unicorn hee-hawing while blasting rainbows from his ass. Number 1. Tonberry, Final Fantasy VII. Every Final Fantasy player remembers their first encounter with Tonberry. Because he's a tiny goblin armed with only a teeny weeny knife, you naturally assume he's a minor foe that can be vanquished with one strike. But as Tonberry shrugs off your basic attacks, you start to get desperate and hit him with strong magic spells. As the unfazed enemy continues to advance towards you, you panic and hit him with your most devastating attacks, and maybe 1 or 2 power-ups you were saving for the final boss. Alas, it's all for naught, since nearly everyone dies the first time they face the wrath of Tonberry. Just to be clear, Tonberry's knife isn't the weapon, it's Tonberry who's the weapon. Each game in the franchise is filled with godlike swords and planet-destroying devices, and yet, there's nothing that fills the player with more dread than watching this cloaked critter shuffling towards you. Although fighting him is a nightmare, it's such a relief when you unlock him as a summon. Once you have Tonberry at your beck and call, it's tempting to use the wee nipper any chance you get, since he can kill most enemies with one swift doink. That's the end of our list, but let us know if you can think of any more cute video game weapons that have unbelievable stopping power. As always, I've been Jess from WhatCulture. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. If you like, you can come say hi to me on my Twitter account, where I'm at Jess McDonald, but make sure you stay tuned to us here for plenty more great gaming lists.